and welcome to Capitol Hill. I'm Melissa Clark. It seems like it's been a long time coming. After decades of gradual decline, Ford has announced it will stop making cars in Australia in 3 years' time. 1,200 Ford workers in Victoria will lose their jobs and many more job losses will flow on through the supply chain. Geelong and Broadmeadows will be hit particularly hard. The Commonwealth and Victorian governments have set up a $40 million fund to help the workers and their communities. Holden and Toyota say they'll keep manufacturing in Australia, but there are many who are very nervous about the future of the nation's automotive industry. Joining me on Capitol Hill this evening is the Coalition's industry spokeswoman Sophie Mirabella, and Labor MP Graham Perrett joins us from Brisbane. Thanks for being with us tonight.
G'day Melissa, g'day Sophie.
First, as we get started, let's hear from the Prime Minister Julia Gillard, who today offered her condolences to the workers and declared her commitment to Australian manufacturing.
It's not easy days in manufacturing. The strength of the Australian dollar obviously bears down on Australian manufacturing, and it does make it a difficult environment for manufacturing to prosper. We wanted to make sure there are around 1 million Australians employed in manufacturing, that we are still a nation that makes things, that manufactures goods. That's why we've worked with the car industry and will continue to work with the car industry.
Julia Gillard there, and it seems both sides of politics agree that it's important we keep making things in Australia in the future. So, Graham Perrett, is there anything more the federal government could have done to stop Ford Australia from ending its production?
Well, look, certainly the car industry has had a long dialogue with the Commonwealth and state governments, particularly the Victorian and South Australian governments, that have been very supportive of every endeavour to keep manufacturing strong in the car industry and the support industries that go with it. Sophie and I would be on the same ticket in agreeing that our manufacturing workers compete with the world. Our research and development people can compete with the world, and you know that was the good thing to come. The only little silver lining in that horrible announcement today is that the R&D people will continue to sell their expertise around the world. In terms of keeping the car industry strong, we have pumped a lot of money into the car industry, particularly into Ford. It's very, very disappointing. It must be heartbreaking for the families down in Geelong. But in terms of how we could have done things better, I guess that we might have to rake over that in a little finer detail in the weeks and months ahead. But I know that we have had faith in the car industry for a very long time.
Sophie Mirabella, do you concede that there's not really much any level of government could have done to keep Ford producing in Australia?
Look, they've been under a lot of pressure. They say they've posted a $600 million loss for the last 5 years. It's a tragic day for Australian manufacturing and a black day for the automotive sector in Australia. It's not just the 1,200 Ford workers and their families who will be facing a very difficult weekend, but also there are potentially thousands of workers in the supply chain that work for companies that supply Ford, and we could see nationally upwards of 5,000 people displaced because of this decision. So it's huge. It's a huge impact on Australian manufacturing. And I think what we have to do is ask ourselves, anyone close to government or involved in decision making needs to ask themselves the question, how can we make a challenging environment, which is what we have at the moment for manufacturing, how can we make that challenging environment less difficult? How can we help our manufacturers compete and be able to survive and to continue to employ people and to export? Because certainly there are some manufacturers who do export and can do it, but there are challenging times. And I think it's incumbent on us to look at the policies that governments have that make it that bit harder to compete. And you can't sort of give industry assistance with one hand and then impose a lot of government regulation and taxation that makes it harder for manufacturers to compete because it increases their cost inputs.
And certainly, Sophie, we've heard your opposition leader, Tony Abbott, detail some of those areas where he's seeking some changes that he says would make it easier for manufacturers. So let's hear briefly from him speaking earlier today.
It is incumbent on everyone associated with government in this country to do everything we reasonably can to make it easier, not harder, for manufacturing to go ahead in this country. That means getting taxes down, it means getting regulations down, it means getting productivity up, it means trying to ensure that there are no sovereign risk issues associated with our country so that investment comes in rather than gets withdrawn.
Graham Perrett, certainly Tony Abbott is saying there that things such as the carbon tax are things that hurt the industry. The Coalition has said today and in the past that it adds $400 to the cost of each car produced. Is it then reasonable to try and lower costs on manufacturers where possible?
Definitely. We should be doing all we can to help manufacturing. I didn't see the Ford president's statement, so I didn't. My understanding is he made no reference to carbon price at all. Certainly, in terms of inputs into production of motor vehicles, I would not have thought that energy would be that significant a factor. But I don't know the production line that well, and obviously the Victorian government's the one that sells electricity to Ford, not the federal government. The majority of the bills, obviously, only a small factor is the carbon price. Now, the reality is, in terms of getting people out to buy cars, one thing I do know, and I live right on the Maruka Magic Mile of motors, so I understand the retail side of cars very well. You do not want an economic climate of austerity. You do not want a climate where you sack 20, 30, 40,000 people. That does not a good market for car purchasers make. I do understand that. We've just gone through the global financial crisis. Obviously, Ford sales were heading south for a while before the global financial crisis. Some of our policies did give a boost there in terms of people purchasing vehicles, but the reality is there are much cheaper vehicles on the market. We've got an incredibly competitive market in Australia, probably the most competitive in the world. That's the reality. I think we've got 70 or so brands on the highway alongside Ford and Holden, and Toyota. So it is very, very competitive. Good for the people making a decision about purchasing. Obviously tougher when we're trying to make sure that we are a country that makes sense.
Certainly that's the case, and that's certainly what we have seen Ford point to today. Sophie Mirabella, when Ford was discussing why they'd come to this decision, it wasn't the carbon tax that they pointed to, it wasn't regulation. What we had was Ford pointing to things like labour costs, things like tariffs imposed by other countries, and their lack of scale when most of their operations are dispersed around elsewhere in the globe. So isn't it a little misleading for Tony Abbott to say that what needs to be done is to get rid of the carbon tax when they're not the elements that Ford are saying contributed to their decision?
Well, not at all. What Ford said today, there were two main reasons why they'd reached this conclusion that they were unviable in this country, why manufacturing was unviable in this country. One was market fragmentation, that is, all these new brands and types of cars competing in Australia, and the other was the cost of manufacturing in Australia. And when you look at the input costs of manufacturing in Australia, utilities costs, taxation, electricity cost, regulatory cost, and the cost of complying with regulation, if anyone says that none of these factors go into input costs for a manufacturer or any other business, well, I don't think they really understand how businesses assume their costs.
But the biggest input costs are things like labour costs, or when it comes to meeting regulations, you haven't specified any, but there's certainly greater safety regulations and higher standards in Australian manufacturing than competitors in Asia, which is what Ford has talked about, where costs are 6 times cheaper. They're not really things that either side of politics is going to talk about winding back feasibly, are they?
Well, in Asia it was actually 4 times cheaper, and in Europe twice as cheap. What we're looking at, we've got manufacturers in Australia, for example, in the automotive aftermarket industry. 80% of businesses in that sector export, and we have manufacturers in other sectors who export. So it is our responsibility to make a challenging situation that many manufacturers find themselves in easier to operate, not more difficult. And manufacturing costs were one of the 2 main reasons cited by Ford. Another significant factor that has played out over the last few years has been the issue of sovereign risk. And we heard in the middle of last year, we heard Mike Devereaux say that the chopping and changing of government policy had raised the issue of sovereign risk in Australia. Now, when we are competing...
What we have on the cards at the moment, if we look at current policy and assistance to the industry, the change being proposed is by the Coalition, which says it would take $500 million out of assistance to the sector if it wins government in September, whereas under the Labor they would continue with their plan.
And increase company tax.
Thanks, Graham, for that too. So, Sophie Mirabella, if we're talking about changes in policy, it's the Coalition that's offering change post-September.
Well, let me explain how you develop good policy and how you develop bad policy. You develop bad policy when you get business around a table and you say, open your books, tell us how much you're prepared to invest in Australia, and we'll come up with a policy called the Green Car Innovation Fund. And then you wait till after the election.
Okay, well,
and
you raised the issue of sovereign risk.
You've asked me a question.
I asked you a question about sovereign risk,
and I'm explaining
and that you're the ones doing the change. So I don't want to...
Yeah, I'm explaining why Mike Devereaux made that comment. Because business was given the go-ahead to invest on the understanding that government would introduce a certain number of policies, including the Green Car Innovation Fund. We have a federal election. Without so much as a phone call, the government gutted the program. They cut $1.4 billion worth of promises they had made to the industry upon which they based their investment, and that raised the issue of sovereign risk. You can't keep changing the goalposts for an industry that needs the certainty that they can believe what the government says. Our policy has been on the table for over 2 years.
Okay.
And it is closer. It still leaves $1 billion worth of funding to 2015.
We are running short on time, and I do want to ask another question of Graham. We heard today from Ford Australia that no amount of government assistance in this case would have helped them, that they modelled extraordinary levels of government help and it still didn't make the numbers add up for them. Given that's the case, does that mean the government now reassesses the financial assistance it has on the table for Holden and for Toyota, given that there is the possibility that these companies might keep coming back and may well be asking for more and more money in the future, as Ford clearly was considering doing?
Well, obviously sensible government will look at the implications of this decision. However, I do know this, that the Australian government, the Labor government, is committed to having a car industry in Australia. I'm particularly passionate about it because of the links into those associated industries, but also, as Sophie has acknowledged in the past, the implications for our defence, for the defence of the realm in the future. We must be able to have the expertise to develop and build, equipment and weapons and the like.
And there's certainly a consensus on that point on both sides. We'll have to leave it there because we're running out of time. Thank you, Graham Perrett and Sophie Mirabella, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That's all for Capitol Hill tonight. Join us the same time tomorrow.